We're going to make some guitar noises with the Neural DSP Nano Cortex today. This breaks the capture functionality out of the quad cortex, adds some effects, and says BYO touchscreen. If you just wanted to have a really high quality capture player with some built-in effects, the new version 2 update for this has added a bunch of pre and post effect slots, as well as more effects. That came out about 2 weeks ago. I've been waiting to get my hands on one of these and actually try it out with some of the captures that I made with the quad cortex, and to make some captures with this, which we are going to hear on today's video. Furthermore, if you want to grab my captures, just follow me on the Cortex Cloud and you can get all the captures you're going to hear in today's video absolutely free, along with my free IR. What we'll do, we'll take a very quick overview of the hardware on here. It is very, very compact and small. I mean, this is the smartphone that I use, and you know, the Nano Cortex is only a little bit wider than it. It's obviously chunkier than it, but you've got encoders on the front here, which can do double duty to either control the amp style controls in the capture or to control the built-in effects on here. You've got the foot switch encoders from the quad cortex. You've got a multi-jack on the side as a capture input, because you can create captures just on this device. So unlike something like, say, ToneX, where you do the capturing process on the computer, the Nano Cortex is all you need to make captures on here. You've got a mono guitar input, stereo outputs on here. One of these outputs doubles up as the capture output as well. USB-C for audio over USB, so you can use this as an audio interface. There's an expression or MIDI jack, so TRS cable in there. You can use MIDI program changes to access all the presets, or you can use an expression pedal to control, say, a wah, a volume pedal, or multiple parameters at once, which we will look at later in the video. And just spoiler alert, that's actually my favorite function of this pedal on here. You can also connect headphones on here. There is a tiny little headphone control on the side there, and I spent way too long when I got this trying to press that little button, not realizing that it was the headphone control. I'm going to be doing everything from the Cortex Cloud app, which connects via Bluetooth today. So I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to start making some noise. I've got a 1990 Les Paul Custom plugged into the Nano Cortex. I'm coming out in stereo to my audio interface. I've also got an expression pedal connected that we will hear a little later in the video. I have used the built-in Bluetooth connection here to connect the Nano Cortex to the Cortex Cloud app, which you can see a screen grab of. Something that jumped out at me immediately was that if you tweak an encoder on the Nano Cortex, say the gain control, you will see its value reflected in real time on the app. Furthermore, if you wanted to change that value on the visual representation of the pedal in the app, you'll see that reflected in real time on the pedal. So if you wanted to, say, mount this underneath a 2-tiered pedal board and just control everything from the app, you can do that and tuck it away discreetly. So I'm actually going to do that. I'll place it here on my desk, and I'll just show you the 4 presets that I have set up to access via the foot switches on the Nano Cortex. Of course, I can access them via the virtual foot switches on here. The left foot switch is going to toggle between a rhythm and a lead scene, and then the right foot switches are like a chimey Vox style thing, and a capture that I made of my late 70s Marshall. Let's hear it. Like that super lead capture that I made there. I can scroll down in the app and take a look at the neural capture that I'm using and select between any of my captures or any of the factory captures on there. You've got an IR slot on here, and I'm using my free LTTV Mix 7 Cab IR that you can download for free in the video description, or if you follow me on the Cortex Cloud app, you can also get access to all of my free captures as well. What's interesting is they have expanded the available onboard effects and effect slots with this version 2 update over here. So there's an input gate, and then there are 2 pre-effects and 3 post-effects on here. So I've got a wah hooked up at the moment. I've got like an Ibanez Tube Screamer style overdrive over here. I've got the Chief DC2W, so a Boss Dimension model over here. I've got the circular delay, and I've got a little bit of the Mind Hall reverb. Now, they're all bypassed at the moment. I can easily kick them in. So let's just have a look at what the Mind Hall does when it's bypassed, and then when it's on, I'll kick in the circular delay, the chorus, the drive, and then I'm going to use the wah hooked up to the expression pedal. I'll show you how to do that after we hear it. That kind of thing is more than enough for me to get through a gig. I could say save 4 different versions of that preset with various combinations of effects and just recall them from the pedal or recall them with MIDI on here. There are a lot of different options now for the pre and post effect slots on here. So you can see there's a bunch of different sections over here. You've got some utility stuff like gates, graphic EQs, and a volume pedal. You've got your wah and filter section over here. I love that they've got the love meat over here as well. There's a bunch of different overdrives, so like a BD2 and OD1 style drive. There's a couple of exotic models. There's a fuzz face. There's the Dark Glass Microtubes B3K, which would be great if you're using this with bass, an OD250, an OCD, and a RAT. So not a comprehensive selection, but a pretty useful selection of drives on there. Then there's some compressors in here. Again, similar types to the comps that you get on the Quad Cortex. Then you've got the pitch transpose function, which you can run as a pre-effect. For the post-effect slots, you've got dedicated modulation, delay, and reverb over here. So the modulation options, you can see I'm using the DC2 model on there, the Dimension chorus, one of my favorite real-world chori, which sounds great. You've got the 2290 chorus, you've got the Dream chorus, like the Petrucci tone print chorus style thing. Then I thought this was interesting. You've got the MXR flanger, phaser, and vibe, but they're only available post distortion on here. I would almost always use like a phase 90 or an MXR flanger before distortion. So it'd be nice if in a future update they let you run this modulation section pre-gain in mono on there. I think that would be really handy with the phasers, but being able to have, say, this Dimension chorus or the 2290 chorus, which we'll hear in a little bit, will be great. The delay section on here, again, I think they only had a couple of options in here, but you've got the circular delay, like the PCM70 Inspire delay over there, analog, digital, dual delay, which is awesome, a dual reverse delay, and the tape delay over there. I really like just the stock settings for the dual delay. If you say go like 500 and 300 milliseconds over here, if you press and hold a parameter, you can dial in the exact time over there. So let's just have a quick listen to that. And then with the reverb, this launched with just the Mind Hall reverb. I think the Mind Hall is a really good sounding large reverb on there, but now you've got things like ambience, cave, hall, modulated, and a room reverb. I actually really like the room reverb, say with the mix around 20% over here. So I'll plug that value in. The decay maybe around 1.5 seconds, you know, something like small-ish for a room on there. And then everything else at the stock settings, I will just bypass the delay over here and we'll just hear the reverb. For the smaller reverbs, the ambience is great. We'll hear some cleaner sounds with the Mind Hall modulated and Hall reverbs because they can sound super lush on there. So that's an overview of a lot of the new stuff that they've added in this update. Let's actually dial in a preset from scratch over here. So I will scroll back over here and show all presets on the unit. I'll come down to an empty slot and let's create a new preset. So at the moment, this is just gonna be my DI guitar sound, no capture, no IR, and no effects. About as inspiring as you would expect on there. So let's come through and select a capture. I'll go to show all banks over here. There's a bunch of captures on here that are factory captures. I've made a bunch of captures that are available for free using the Quad Cortex. I've loaded some of those in, like my ADA captures and my captures of like the Soldano X88 IR over here. But let's go for something that I've made with the Nano Cortex. We'll roll with that 1979 JMP capture. Now, this doesn't have an IR on it at the moment, so let's change that. I'm going to kick in the LT TV Mix 7 cab IR. Let's just quickly tweak it. I like in here, if you want to restore the defaults or to sort of zero everything out on a parameter, you just double tap it. So there we are at 0 dB over there. High pass, I'll scroll up to around 80 Hertz. Low pass, let's take that to around 8 kilohertz on there. And we'll just have a listen to the overall level on here. So I've got the capture volume around 0. I've got the IR volume at 0. We get this. I really like the way that sounds. I mean, I really like the way the amp sounds, so that would make sense over there. So I've got my capture, I've got my IR. The input gate settings by default, I think are pretty good. What is it, around 30%? Let's do this. Let's start by just adding a bit of reverb on there. So I'm gonna come over to the reverb. The Mind Hall being the kind of, I guess, default Quad Cortex reverb. It's very much a lexicon-inspired reverb, but saying something is a lexicon-inspired reverb is like saying that, you know, this is a 6-string inspired guitar. Everyone's inspired by lexicon, but that aside, I think it sounds great. Let's do this. We'll go for around 20% on the mix here. We'll turn the decay down similarly to about 20%. And I'm going to bring the pre-delay down on this. I think a high pre-delay is really good if you're going for ambient sounds. Let's go for 10 milliseconds for some crunch over here. Everything else should be pretty cool. We'll hear it without and then with it. I like it. I would really like to have a plate reverb available in here in the future. I know the Quad Cortex has a plate mode and a tight plate. They're probably my favorite reverbs on the Quad Cortex, so obviously I would like to see them on the Nano in the future as well. Let's add some pre-effects on here. I want to set up a wah, so we'll use the very first slot on here. Actually, first I want to hear this transpose function, so let's do this to maybe say like turn my guitar down, I don't know, 2 semitones over here if I wanted to play songs that are in drop C. So I'm just going to let you hear it without anything, and then I will kick it in. That works the way I would expect it. Again, coming from the Quad Cortex, this is all very familiar. Let's do this. Let's come up to the wah section over here. I'm gonna go for the crying wah, and I'll go to done. What I want to do now, though, is, if I engage this, it's just going to be like a fixed wah. I need to set it up so that the pedal knows to listen to the expression pedal and map it over there. So what I'm going to do is actually save this preset. Let's just call it LT JMP or something very imaginative. So we've got that one over there. I hit save, and then I can come up here, and in the top right, I can get access to things like settings. I can create a new capture guided by the app, or I can go to the expression pedal. So this is what I want to do. The wah is in effect slot number 1. Let's set it to pre-effects 1. If I move my expression pedal up and down, you can see it's controlling that parameter. But what I also want to do here is I want to scroll down and I want to set the bypass state to bypass pre-effects 1 with a latch emulation. So if I take my wah and I push it heel down, it's going to be like activating a virtual switch on there. This means that I don't need to actually kick the wah on and off. Just by pushing my heel down on the pedal, it will auto engage the wah. So let's come down here and we can see exactly what is happening there. So I move the pedal and it moves the wah, but when I go heel down, it will actually engage the wah over there. Next, I would like to have the option of adding an overdrive in front of here. The stock overdrive is the green 808, overdrive all the way down, level all the way up, tone somewhere around 7 or 8. Adds a pretty nice amount of boost in front of this. OCD is really nice to thicken things up. Let's have a listen to a fuzz. We'll go for the fuzz face. I like that it just starts off with everything at full volume and you've got this pickup option on here. So we'll go for humbucker. I think the Tube Screamer is the winner with the Marshall. Surprise, surprise, it's a classic combo. Let's add some modulation. I really like that the default mode is the dimension chorus. Neural DSP know what we all want when it comes to chorus. So I am going to start this with a mix around 50%, and they have modeled either the standard mode or the rack SDD 320 mode over here. I know that mode 3 is my favorite over here, so this should do the thing. Ooh, the boost with that 2290 chorus is really nice on there, kind of giving me Pat Travis vibes. I was talking about having the flanger and phaser post gain on here. I think the dimension or the 2290 chorus for the dirt sounds work really well to add some stereo width and girth. But again, I'd much rather have these guys pre-distortion. I think they sound a little bit off hearing them post-distortion. It's just too much phase no matter where you set it on there. So I reckon the ability to have this modulation block pre or post gain being movable would be really cool for a future update on there. Let's talk about delay though. Actually, what did I like? I like the 2290 chorus. Let's do that. Let's have the mix around 50-ish%, rate a little bit lower, width all the way up. I'll hit save on that because I think it sounds good. Now, delay, the real fun stuff on here. A lot more delay options on here, which I think is really good. And I think this has kind of been a criticism of some other capture style devices out there where they give you a capture, they give you reverb. And I'm like, can you just give me a capture and delay at the very least? I would much rather have delay built into a small unit like this than having reverb on there. Having circular delay, for me, being a Lukather fan, is probably an even bigger thing over there. So, I mean, we could take the circular delay there and let's come back and let's actually swap out this capture for a capture that I made of my Soldano X88IR. So we'll take a look at all the captures, and I've got this X88IR Crunch Fat mode on there. This one I captured directly from the unit, which has an IR baked in. So I'm going to disable the built-in IR over there, and let's go back to our delay here. So this is what we've got: 2290 chorus, a bit of Mind Hall reverb, and now a Soldano capture. And that's the worst rendition of that solo that you're going to hear today. It started so promisingly. I had high hopes for it, and then the wheels just totally fell off. But nevertheless, the circular delay mode in there, it's my favorite delay in there. I like that you've got this like vintage mode on and off on there. They've expanded the number of tap presets on there, which again, I think is a really cool thing. Being able to just replicate an old piece of digital gear is great, but expanding on it, making it more functional and finding some new sounds with those algorithmic styles, it's just something that makes me happy. Nevertheless, let's try a dual delay over here. I really like the dual delay in here. And for me, my go-to dual delay settings in any device would be something like about, let's say, 444 milliseconds with 333 milliseconds. That's going to give you a quarter note and a dotted eighth note at 135 BPM. A lot of ragdoll songs that are 135 BPM, so I just know those values on there. I'm going to scale the feedbacks accordingly so that the shorter delay has slightly more feedback. Let's try around 40% on there. You've got dynamics on there, so you can set this up as a ducker. Let's go something like that. Dynamic depth, I might bring down a little bit. And I'm just going to leave the mix where it is, actually. A little bit of cross feedback. That's what I want over here. Let's have a listen to this. If I want wanted to tweak the tone of the capture a little bit, I could either do that with the app or with the pedal. And again, if I tweak it on the pedal, it's going to be reflected on the app. So I'd like a little bit more gain. I'd like a little bit more mid-range on there from the stock value, maybe a little less treble for the kind of lead style sound over there. Once we've got that happening, I can come up here to the top right and I can save this as a new preset, because we kind of started with that JMP capture and we got massively derailed over there. So let's save it to an empty slot over here. I will call it LT Grease, because this one absolutely has the grease flowing, and we'll have a listen to it with a little bit more gain and a little bit more mid-range on there. Let's try dialing a super lush clean sound now. I've got a JTM 45 DI capture that I made with the Quad Cortex that I've loaded in. I'll just go with my free cab IR again. This is a little bit bright with this Tyler on the neck and middle pickup. So what I'll do is I'll just bring a bit of treble down and just dial in the EQ a little bit sweeter. That's a lot better. What I want to do straight up is add a compressor in front of all of that. So we will use the second pre-effects block over here. We're actually going to use it as a comp instead of as an overdrive. The Opto comp and the 87 comp I really like. I think for a cleaner thing, I'm going to go with the Opto comp on here. Let's just have a listen to what it does at the stock settings. I like that. We're going to come back to that first pre-effect slot in a second. Let's just add some stereo widening using a modulation effect in here. I'm going to go with that 2290 chorus again, but we will go for a much lower mix on there. So we'll hit that. We'll turn the width all the way up. I get this. That compressed clean chorus sound is just in my blood now. So let's go over to the reverb. We'll try the Mind Hall at the stock settings. This is pretty lush as is. But what I found for sort of ambient sounds is either the cave or the modulated reverb. I love the modulated reverb because you can have a super lush verb on there, you know, get the decay up around, say, 8 to 10 seconds, have a lot of pre-delay on there. Let's go for, I don't know, somewhere around 80 milliseconds, and then modulate the tails. I'm even going to turn the mix up above 50% on here. This one is rad. Let's add some delay to that to make it even more washy. We can go for the circular delay, the dual reverse delay might be cool on there. The tape delay is cool as well. Actually, let's just stick with the analog delay over here, set up as a ping pong mode. I'll go for, I don't know, maybe 600 milliseconds on there, something slightly longer, plenty of feedback on there, a nice high pass and low pass. They're pretty good stock values on there, actually. Let's check out what this does. And I really do have to say, I think that is a big point of difference with the Nano Cortex over something like the Tone X pedal. You can't get those super detailed reverbs and those gloriously washy delays out of the Tone X pedal. The built-in effects there, I think, are really serviceable and they're a lovely addition on there. But if you were using a bunch of, say, Strymon or Eventide pedals before that and you thought you could replace them, in my opinion, you'd probably be disappointed with what you get out of a lot of other things. I feel like the delay, reverb, and modulation options on there are pretty world class. I really like that I'm able to get that kind of super sweet, detailed sound out of them. I think that's the key phrase there. It's detailed and articulate. It's not totally washing out the core guitar sound on there. So that's really impressive. Now, I didn't use anything in the pre-effects slot one because what I want to do is come in here and use this transpose pitch function on there. What we're going to do is we are going to take it up 12 semitones over here, and I'll take the mix control down, I don't know, around 30%. I'll add a bunch of low pass on there so it's not too bright. And basically, I'm going to use this to sort of like blend in an octave effect on there. Furthermore, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and with my expression pedal, I am going to control the overall mix of that octave up effect. So pre-effects 1, I'm going to set maybe from 0 to about 50% on there. So I get a nice blend. And then what I can do is I can use my expression pedal to blend in a nice high octave over there. Let's have a listen to that. Slight misunderstanding on my part there. That's actually controlling the pitch amount on there. So the mix is preset. Another request for a future Nano Cortex update would be to control just, say, the mix of the pitch block on there. You can control multiple parameters at the same time, which I think is also really cool. So if I come over, say, let's go to this LT lead preset over here. We'll go to the expression assignments. And let's say I want to have a slightly less amount of gain and a little bit drier rhythm sound. And then as I push the pedal forward, I want more gain and I want more delay and reverb on there. Let's set that up. So we'll go to gain. I want my maximum gain to be, say, 63%. And my minimum gain maybe to be about 40% on there. Furthermore, maybe as I turn the gain up, I want the mids to go up as well. So let's set the mids from like 50% to 70% or something like that. And then we can come down to post effects 3 amount. This is my reverb amount. Let's have the minimum value around 10% and the maximum around, say, 30, 40%. Similar for the delay over there. We'll go from a minimum of 0 to a maximum of around 40% on there. Now, with a single expression pedal, I'm able to increase the gain, the mids, the reverb, and the delay on there. This makes it super versatile. Check this out. Now, in my personal opinion, that is probably the coolest way to use this pedal, essentially setting it up to morph with the expression pedal between like drier, lower gain sounds, or in my case, slightly drier, slightly lower gain sounds, and then pushing the gain, the mids, the overall capture volume on there if you wanted a boost, and the delay and reverb. That would mean that you'd use like a single pedal and an expression pedal and kind of do everything you would need to do. And, you know, with the built-in foot switches, you could say have 4 different presets that do that. You could think of it as like 4 different rigs. So yeah, that's let's say a beginning deep dive into this pedal. I do want to do some more videos on this and explore a bunch of the other features and functions. And I want to hear from all of you. What would you like me to explore? Do you want tips for capturing? Do you want tips for dialing in live or studio sounds? Do you want more of this cool stuff like expression assignments or how to set it up to use MIDI? There's definitely a list of things I would like to see add to this that I think would make it even more functional. This update I see as a really cool roadmap for where they could go with the Nano Cortex. It's such a like sleek, small, chunky pedal. It's actually a really lovely piece of industrial design, much like the Quad Cortex. Like if someone said, hey, you know, Apple made a guitar modeler, I think that's kind of what they're going for here with the way it works and the way the app really seamlessly integrates with it. I'd love to see MIDI CC added to the list of things you can do on here, like turn individual effects on, control a bunch of parameters you want in there with, say, multiple expression pedals. I would love to see the ability to, say, map the modulation section before all the overdrives in there so that you can, say, get an authentic Phase 90 style drive on there. Say, not drive, phaser. Although a Phase 90 does give you a little boost on there. You can use it as an always-on boost. I'm getting sidetracked on here. What did I say? MIDI CCs, being able to move the modulation around, having some more expression pedal assignments via MIDI in there would be really cool. And I think everyone is always going to like more effect categories in there, having a plate reverb in there, having a bit more of the delay selection from the Quad Cortex on there, having more drives and maybe sort of like transparent boost style things, maybe having a few different options for the pitch effects in there. I think the wahs and the filters are really nice. I mean, the dimension chorus, the circular delay, the mind hall reverb, a couple of my favorite captures of my real world gear, that is already scratching that itch massively. And the thing that I like about it, like I said, is super high quality stuff in there. It feels like the captures, the effects, it's not a compromise on there. I feel like with every little capture player out there, there's always some inherent trade-off where you're like, well, the captures sound really good, but the effects are an afterthought. Or the effects are really good, but the captures aren't quite as detailed on there. This, I think, just needs to live in my guitar bag because it's basically the ultimate backup solution I've been waiting for. When the Quad Cortex came out, and I'm sure a lot of other people thought, how cool would it be if they just did the capture player as a standalone pedal? And when the Nano launched, that's what they did. And then, of course, we all went, well, having the captures is really cool, but we'd also like to have some built-in effects in there. I think this update does a really good job of slaking that thirst on there. I'd love to hear from all of you, though. Let me know if you're using a Nano. If you want to grab my free captures and my free IR, they are up there for you to use. This is a whole bunch of fun stuff to get into, and you will see a bunch more videos with this pedal. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you like what I do here on the channel, there's links to support me directly via Patreon, where you can get access to exclusive backing tracks and lessons, or you can check out some of the music that I make with my band Ragdoll. If you sat through all the riffing and noodling here, you'll probably really dig that stuff with somebody I consider to be a fantastic drummer and somebody I consider to be a really fantastic singer and bass player as well. I have above average friends, including all of you. See you on the next one.